Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Ruffman. I am your host, John Ruffman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to point out every single day, it expands our base. Separating the wheat from the chaff. Well, it's an old expression, but I think it applies in this presidential campaign. We're hearing a lot of accusations on both sides. You have Donald Trump saying that Kamala Harris is not smart, indeed, that she really isn't very bright at all, and indeed, suggesting that she is unfit to be president of the United States. We have Kamala Harris saying that Donald Trump is unfit to be president of the United States. And last night in the CNN town hall, she used the term which, was used by General Kelly and was used, of course, by others, that Donald Trump is a fascist. That means that the invective in this campaign is growing. But how do you separate what's true from what's not true? And that's the question I want to deal with right now. First, let's deal with the charge that Kamala Harris doesn't have the brains or the strength to be president of the United States. Well, we know that as District Attorney of San Francisco, Attorney General of California, United States Senator, and Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris has demonstrated she has the resilience, she has the intelligence, she has the strength. You may disagree with her on issues. That's fine. But to attack her personally in that way, I object. I think she has more than demonstrated her capabilities. Now let's deal with the accusation against Donald Trump, that he is a fascist. Now, those of you who've listened to me over the years know I do not like to use terms like fascist or communist or socialist. I don't think that's the way you judge a candidate for president. But in this campaign, it is not Kamala Harris who is raising the accusation against Donald Trump. It is the people closest to him, the people around him, who have used the term fascist. It's very disturbing because this is not a campaign based on issues and differences. What this campaign has become is a campaign of invective on both sides. However, separating the wheat from the chaff is what I wanted to discuss with you today. Some of the charges are poppycock, absolute nonsense, but other charges may have some foundation in fact. And that's the question I want to raise with you. How do you separate the wheat from the chaff? You have to take a look at the whole record. You have to really think about what is being said and why it's being said. You have to think about the future of the nation. Well, let me give you an example. Last night, Donald Trump proclaimed that if he's elected president, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will play a critical role in health care. I stopped and I thought to myself, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has opposed vaccines, who has dabbled in conspiracy theories, and you would have Bobby Kennedy Jr. running the health services of the United States of America? And then, of course, there's Donald Trump's statement that if he were president, he would invoke the Alien and Sedition Act, giving him the right, the power to expel people from the United States of America if he chose to, unilaterally. There are a whole host of issues where I think the accusations against Donald Trump are real. The accusations against Kamala Harris really don't hold up in my mind. And it's not because I'm voting for Kamala Harris for president. It is because I believe that you have to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. One of the other issues in this campaign, which ought to be addressed in this very area, has to do with foreign policy. I have complained to you before, and I use the term complained advisedly, that there is no real discussion about foreign policy. No real discussion about Ukraine, no real discussion about the Middle East, no real discussion about our relationship to NATO, None of those issues have come to the fore. And so what are we left with? Accusations hurled back and forth. And what do we have to do? We have to separate what's true and what's false, what has credibility and what has no credibility. And we have to do it in the next 12 days. That's right, because we are electing a new president. And whoever that president is, well, that's the next question we have to deal with. The anger, the bitterness in this campaign by various parties is so great that one wonders about the credibility of whether we can in the end come together. I was intrigued today that General Flynn, who was briefly National Security Advisor to Donald Trump, had to concede that there was nothing wrong with the voting machines, that in fact he was wrong. But do we have many concessions like that? Look at Rudy Giuliani, who is still maintaining that what he did was right, that he was pursuing justice, when we know it isn't true. How do we separate the wheat from the chaff? Then I hear some who accuse Joe Biden of being senile, unable to function, unable to do his job as president. Well, you and I know that isn't true either. How do we separate wheat from chaff? How do we analyze the situation? So let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm listening carefully to what is being said by the candidates and about the candidates. I'm looking at who is making the statements, who do I believe and who I don't believe. That may be the way that we separate the wheat from the chaff. One thing we do know, 2 weeks from now, when Election Day has passed, there will still be a great debate in this country about who won the election. And that to me is very sad. We must go back to the days when an election was over, the result was accepted. Otherwise, we will commit a grave injustice to the very concept of orderly transition of power and American democracy. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which of course is our goal. I want to point out that you can interact with me on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and you can email me. Most important of all, my deep appreciation to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of Around the Political World with John Rothman. And now, ladies and gentlemen, until tomorrow, this is John Rothman.